that you would help me. Before we start, can I take a picture of you all? So I've been doing this for 20 years now, and my mom still doesn't believe that people come to hear me talk about eating things they find on the ground. So I like to tease her. So, okay, smile. Cool. Thank you. All right, well, why do we not have it up here? Good. Oh, yeah. Tell you what, I'm gonna put this here and talk really loud. I'll use my outdoor voice. Is that picking up on Zoom? No. Okay. Yeah. Like I said, why do we not have the image up there? No, I'm gonna keep it up here. IT person.
Oh, sorry.
Hi.
So you're gonna use your mind to imagine all that.
It is.
Stand by.
Is the PowerPoint open there? Yes. Maybe click on that little square down. That one right there, that's what I did. See that here. It still says it's still.
All right, I guess while they're figuring this out, I can give a little bit of background. First off, yes, I am a PhD chemist. My master's was in medicinal chemistry. My PhD was.
Oh, hey, we're getting closer.
That's not gonna be here.
What happened? I have no idea. I did not touch any buttons. I will say it never rains during a foraging class, but when we come inside, we got problems. No, it's not been done. Button line? Yeah, or they're just out of. Looks like. Oh. Doreen? What? Let's go down. I can make it one. Yeah, I think the battery is going down. They're in the slide buildings. It's when I put it in slide mode, there's a mirror under. I will go free. If you can just have it on there, that's good enough. But it's full screen in here, start the slideshow. And then down at start the slideshow. Battery down. Yeah, look, where'd she go? She went to batteries.
There she is.
That looks good, Mark. All right. And she's, we're gonna try it this way. I'm an impatient man. All right, so welcome to Native Plant Society. Well, you guys know your Native Plant Society. But yeah, so tonight we're going to talk about native Texas plants that can be used as spices. I noticed on your display, I've seen that display at all sorts of plant conferences and stuff everywhere you guys show up. I'm usually lurking in the background, picking up your scraps. But I noticed you don't have food security or spices as reasons to plant native plants. So it's something you should consider. All right, again, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Mark Merryweather Vorderbruggen. Merryweather is actually a nickname given to me decades ago because every time I was out hiking with my friends, I was constantly on my knees looking at plants and mushrooms rather than actually walking. And they started to stop, come on, Merryweather, we still got 20 miles to go, because Merryweather Lewis, that was his job in the Lewis and Clark expedition. And it just has stuck with me ever since. Foragingtexas.com is my website. If you haven't been there, you can scan the QR code. Currently, there's over 250 plants and mushrooms with everything from, 12 structural features. You need to identify each one. Range maps, detailed information on when, where, how to use them, find them, identify them. If they're mimics, well, you can tell them apart from the mimics. Everything you need to basically let me rest. So, but maybe not. And then I'm also, my most recent book, it's 3 years out now, Outdoor Adventure Guide Foraging. So this actually, first off, it's not just native plants. It is designed to cover all of North America, but as most of you probably know, especially the East Texas area is some of the most diverse plant area in North America. So it was very easy for me to cover all of North America just driving around Houston and into the East Texas. So pretty much everything in this book is valid for the Houston area. Just saying, I have it for sale here afterwards.
I haven't.
Sorry about that.
Okay. Couple of warnings. First off, foraging is not allowed in most public places. You are not allowed to wander the grounds here and start snacking unless you're actually in one of my classes. Same goes with state parks and most national parks. You are allowed to harvest mushrooms in the national forests. So the Sam Houston, the Davy Crockett, the Sabine, and the Angelina. You are allowed to harvest 1 gallon of mushrooms per person per day for private use. And then if you go down into the Big Thicket National Preserve, the current park superintendent there does allow you to harvest nuts, fruits, and berries. So pretty cool. But otherwise, it's generally illegal. And then one of the other things when you are foraging, please don't eat anything poisonous. There's a lot of paperwork involved. Don't do it. Don't do it. The key to not eating poisonous things is proper identification. To properly identify a plant, you want to match 5 to 8 structural features. I'm on all sorts of different plant groups on Facebook and all this stuff, and over, I see people posting pokeweed as elderberry because they both have purple berries. So this is obviously elderberry. Every other structural feature is different between the two plants, other than the color of the berry. But if you match at least 5, 8 is better. You've identified it close enough to eat. Okay, now how this is going to work, I will be showing a plant. I'll be asking, does anyone recognize the plant? There are no prizes if you recognize the plant, other than a smug sense of superiority. Which it's done me very well throughout my life. And then I'll go over the edible uses and identification of it, edible uses, and then I'm going to open the floor and the Zoom to questions for each plant. So while I'm talking about the plant, think of the question, and then I will ask, are there any questions? At that point, someone will frantically dash to you with a microphone so that the question can also be gotten on the Zoom here too. Okay, so starting with this one. A fairly large shrub, lots of blueberries.
Anyone recognize him? Wax myrtle, yeah, you get nothing. All right, so identifying, yeah, southern wax myrtle name, and I'm not even gonna try and pronounce the Latin name. I grew up Catholic, we watch out for Latin, because I know if I mispronounce it, demons will appear. So, but for identification, alternating leaves, the edges of the leaves are serrated. Very pleasant odor if you crush the leaves, a very, very good pleasant odor. And this time of year, the females will be producing the blueberries. Think of this as Cajun oregano. So this is a Gulf Coast regional native plant. This is actually the secret ingredient in a lot of the Cajun boils, the shrimp broil and the crawfish boil. I'd use it in any Italian dish. Like my Cajun lasagna back when I was in the oil industry was a big hit for potlucks. Way better than the pickled earthworms. So I started bringing the pickled earthworms, then I just got put on coat duty and it was fine. But you can just dry the leaves, crush up and use it anywhere you would use Italian seasoning. You know, in your sauces and red sauces. I will tell you, if you make your own sausages, like a feral hog and waxleaf myrtle leaf sausage, that's fantastic. That's good eating. You can also put it in rice. Basically anywhere you would use an Italian season. Any questions about it? Very common plant, yes. Okay, so the berries, I mean, you won't die. The name wax myrtle actually comes, the berries have a coating of wax on the surface, and they used to collect them and boil them. The wax would melt, float to the top, skim it off, and then they would use the wax as wax to make candles and so forth. So it's better used that way as a source of wax. And I will say, if you do it right, the wax also does have that scent that I just walked into a Yankee Candle sort of really potent Italian sort of scent. Any other questions? Yes. Oh, wait for the microphone. Yeah.
Male and female varieties, when you're buying them, how do you know? Is it only the berries? Because I got a whole bunch of them and I didn't even realize there was a male and female situation.
Yeah, well, so if you want the female, if you want the berries, buy the plant in the fall. Otherwise, there's no real way of telling. Yeah.
Another question.
So, one over there.
So you can harvest the leaves, dry them out, keep them in the pantry, is that how you say?
Yeah, so you can just take the leaves and just, they should be in a shaker in your spice rack, just like with all your other spices. Just dry them, and once you use up, your Tony Chachere's Cajun seasoning, you just replace it with this.
Do have some questions in the chat on Zoom.
By the way, we're scheduled until midnight, so just be ready.
Seriously, we do have to get by mine.
One question is there a dwarf cultivar equally safe to eat?
Is there a dwarf cultivar of the wax myrtle? Not that I know of, but one of the things about the wax myrtle is it is very easily pruned into any shape you want. It's actually commonly used for topiary too. So if you want it to be a big 18-foot tall tree, let us do that. If you want it to be a hedge, prune it into a hedge. So, good questions.
Evergreen.
Oh yeah, it is evergreen too. So makes a good privacy fence that you can eat. Okay, this one's a little trickier. It's a fairly large tree, slow growing. And unfortunately, they are dying. This is, the red bay. And unfortunately, there's a thing called laurel wilt that is passing through the Gulf Coast region and killing not only the red bay and the laurel cherry, but also the sassafras. So, but red bay, this is an understory tree, fairly large. It can get 30, 40 feet tall, alternating stiff leaves. The leaves almost feel like plastic and they crack when you're trying to bend it. The edge is intact entire, not toothed. It's important to make sure there are no teeth, because the tooth
duplicated one is laurel cherry, which is loaded with cyanide. So you don't want to be using those leaves. You want to make sure you have no teeth. The top of the leaf is a darker green, the underside is a lighter green, and it has a bay-like scent. It's a direct replacement for bay. This is another thing, you should have it drying and ready to throw in your soups and your stews, and wherever you would normally use a bay leaf, you can just use these. There's a bunch of them on the property. Not that you can harvest them here. But like the native plant sales and so forth, they will sell them. I will warn you, it is a slow growing tree. It'll take a long time for it to get big. So hopefully you have a piece of property, you're friends with someone who has some property, because most likely in East Texas, there's submarine attack. There's most likely bay trees on it. And side note, I didn't have it on here, but the nuts are roasted and used as a coffee substitute too. So no caffeine, so kind of pointless in my book, but I suppose. Any questions on the red bay?
For the record, that's also a host plant for swallowtails and type of thing.
Don't eat the swallowtails,
Don't eat the caterpillar.
they're bitter.
What is the disease affecting red bay again, and is there a way to help them?
Okay, so the disease is called laurel wilt. It is a fungus that is brought over by a boring beetle from elsewhere. The first signs is, they call it flagging, where you'll notice some of the branches, the entire branch in the tree is dead and the leaves turn brown. Unfortunately, at this point, they still don't have any cure. What they recommend, if you see it, you want to amputate that limb as soon as possible, burn it, and just keep an eye on everything around you. So I know it is running rampant right now up in the woodlands.
Do we know where it came from?
Yes.
Would you elaborate?
Asia.
Asia.
It came over from, like
From Asia.
from Asia. Any other questions? Wait for the microphone.
And, oh, there's the tip.
How long have the tips been turning brown? In that case, it's probably not laurel wilt. Because it will spread, like one whole limb will very quickly die, and then within 2 years, everything else will be gone, I will say, dried brown leaves that you find on the tree, if they still have that base end, you can still use them for food or, well, spice.
About the berries, if a lot of the tree is still alive and the birds eat the berries from that tree, is that going to spread the disease?
Okay, so my understanding is no, not necessarily. It is spread by beetles boring in to the tree itself. So hopefully it's not spread by birds. That would be bad. That would be worse, I guess. Okay, let's move on. I'm going to be really surprised if anyone recognizes this. Oh.
Isn't that very deep?
All right, color me surprised. Well done. Okay, he's the new king of you all. Yeah, so prairie tea, also known as single seed croton or one seed croton. It is actually, of the different crotons, it is the only edible one. Again, croton magna blah 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 blah. It's not as long as my last name, but it's still more than I'm going to tackle. Fuzzy gray leaves, kind of a red woody stem, short plant. Produces lots and lots and lots of these tiny little, like 2 millimeter across round little berries all season long. So it's constantly from like June until a frost. It will be producing new flowers and new seeds. So it spreads very vigorously, like all crotons do.
minty oregano. That's how I describe the flavor. It's kind of oregano, kind of minty. Prairie tea was used a lot just as a tea because it's a pleasant drink that way. But it's also a really good thing to mix with the others that we've seen that have the Italian-y sort of thing going on. So I love sprinkling it on pizza, again, throwing in sauces, especially the red sauces, rice, anywhere where you just want to have kind of you would use oregano. And honey, mixed with honey, very good that way. If there are any beekeepers here, try that. Still all over the area. I want to point out, do I have? Yeah, okay. So you want to have the woolly croton, sorry, the two crotons around here that are poisonous. There's the woolly croton. Which, I think it's this, I don't have my reading glasses. Yeah. The woolly croton and the three-seed croton are both crotons. They have similar structural features. They also smell really good. The woolly croton is much larger with big leaves. The three-seed croton, when you look at the berries, they will look like a bell pepper with three distinct lobes. Whereas a single seed croton just has a round ball with one seed in it. So if you can count to three, break one of those open. If there's one seed, it's good. If there's three seeds, yeah, leave it alone. So any questions on this? Very key.
Is there anything to tell them to them apart, like when they don't have any berries on them?
Now, well, okay, so the woolly croton, it's gonna be much bigger, much fuzzier. It's almost gonna be velvety. It's gonna feel soft, like your favorite teddy bear from, you know, well, I won't tell how long, but I like my teddy bear. The three seed is a little more difficult, but one of the things, especially out here, the three seed is much more common up like in the Nacogdoches area and up that way. Whereas a single seed is more basically from like Waller and Montgomery and Anderson through West Texas. But otherwise, just wait. It doesn't take long for it to produce seeds, and it will keep producing new seeds all summer long, new fruit. It spreads very vigorously. So, any questions on prairie tea? One seed croton? It's very tasty. Put it on your pizza. Okay, what's this? Horseweed, yeah. Yep, it's one of your flea bands. So this is actually what it looks like right now. So horseweed, hairy stem, hairy leaves, 3 to 4 feet tall, alternating leaves. If you know what goldenrod looks like, imagine goldenrod had a hair transplant and not a very good one. That's basically the difference there. Well, also right now, the horseweed has the small white flowers on top, whereas goldenrod soon will have the gold flowers. All I can say is God loves Italian. So many of these plants just go great on pizza. That's, you know,
I think
Beetles?
loves pizza.
yeah, well, maybe that's, I was gonna say, you know, what's the quote? God has an inordinate fondness of beetles and Italian seasonings. This has more of a oregano rosemary sort of flavor to it. So again, good on pizza. What I like doing, I'll get a roast, I'll butterfly it open, stuff a bunch of this in there, tie it back shut, and then slow cook it for a long time. Or if you're familiar with spatchcock chicken, where you cut the spine out of the back of the chicken and butterfly it down over a pile of herbs, it works really good for that too. So, and if you're into primitive skills, the stock is actually pretty good for hand spindle fire starting. So horseweed, very common plant all over the place. We're getting to the end of the season now. It really is looking more like this, just kind of fuzzy brown. You're gonna have to file this away until next spring and then get it then. But absolutely fantastic flavor. Really good. Much better than any of the other of the flea bangs. It actually has I like it. Oh. supposedly, it was also the secret ingredient to the original formulation of Dr. Pepper. So if you,
They
Yeah.
say weird.
yeah, you can make a tea from it, you can make, you know, stuff like that. It's a fun plant to experiment with. Well, and it's one, you gotta add some ginger, some cinnamon, some cocaine. The original formula. So, that's a whole nother class.
Can you use all of these herbs fresh or dried? And if it flowers, does the flavor?
Okay, great question. So it depends on what I'm doing. Really, if I'm doing the roast, I'll just go in the backyard and pull it off and put it in there. Normally, it is best to dry the plants and, ooh, this requires pantomime. So remember, plants have a cell wall. And all this stuff is trapped inside the cell. So if you take the green leaves and don't do much to rupture the cell wall, most of the flavor is gonna stay stuck inside the leaves. But most plants, when they die or think they're dead, the last thing they do is trigger an enzyme whose purpose is to kind of chew holes through that cell wall so the nutrients can be released back into the soil. This takes about 2 weeks for most plants. During that time, the cell wall will be punctured. The water will evaporate out through it. Once the water is gone, that enzyme stops, so it doesn't just completely decay. You pretty much make plant jerky, but now when you put it in your sauce, in your water, in your tea, anything like that, you have escape routes for the material, the compounds to come out. And so you get a stronger flavor that way. I tell people, if your house doesn't look like a witch's workshop, you're doing it wrong. Because you can't just dehydrate. If you dehydrate it, you will drive the water out through the stoma, through the little air things, but you won't get that holes through the cell wall. Freeze drying is excellent. If you have a freeze dryer, that works well because the ice punctures the cell wall, then he sublimates away, and so you have holes that way. But otherwise, yeah, just let your herbs dry naturally. Yeah.
What if you bake them dry?
So again, that doesn't rupture the cell wall baking it. So you'll get some flavor, but just from the broken edges of it, that's where you're gonna get the thing. And then when you chew it, yeah, you'll get that too. But like when you spatchcock a chicken, usually you don't eat the herbs that it was laying on. You make maybe green. So I really push just letting them air dry to get the strongest, richest, best flavor. Okay, any other questions? Oh,
This is Canadians, right?
oh yeah, I guess I have blinked there. Yeah.
Well, there's another one called Barneriensis. I guess it's not as common.
There are a number of okay, the one you're talking about, yeah, it's less common, but it can be used in the same way. I've played with both. Yep. Blind, I need to fix that. Okay. What is this? I was very curious to see what sort of reaction I would get from this. This is wild carrot. It is not Queen Anne's lace. So Queen Anne's lace, the wild carrot, that is non-native. You guys would run me out of here if I brought that up. But a lot of you don't realize we have a native carrot. This one. It's basically very prevalent, basically from Sugarland all the way down past Corpus Christi. Along the roadsides and so forth. If you see like wild carrot along the roadsides, as you're heading down, what is it, 59 or whatever, heading towards Corpus, it's this one. The main difference is it does not have that single bloom of the in the center, that rich purple or red single bloom at the heart of the umbel. It has all the other features, especially the Kermit the Frog collar underneath the flowers, the hairy stem, which you need to identify, keep it separate from hemlock. I will have a side-by-side picture of this and hemlock though, just to drive home, because again, a lot of paperwork if you die. solid taproot. It's a celery seed replacement. So use it wherever you would use celeries. Anyone in the oil industry here or ex-oil? You ever go up to Canada for the Stampede? Up in Calgary? Ah, awesome. They have a drink up there. They have a lot of drinks up there. My favorite was called a Caesar. It's basically like a Bloody Mary, but they use clamato juice, you know, the mixture of squeezed clam and tomato juice and celery seed. This makes a great substitute for that. Okay, you can put it in pickles, soups, stews, cocktails, anywhere you would use celery seeds, you can use the wild carrot seeds. If you see how it's shaped here, let's see, do I go back? I was gonna say, one of the other identifying characteristics when it's at seeds, it will be what they call a bird's nest. But this is what you need to know. So the edible wild carrot has this, I call it the Kermit the Frog collar. The hemlock does not. The stem, it's hard to see, but the stem of the wild carrot is very hairy and coarse, whereas the hemlock is smooth. Don't just go by the color. People will say like the hemlock will always have purple spots. No, I've seen green hemlock. But it's going to be smooth and hairless. One thing I always tell my students, just remember Queen Anne had hairy legs. And that will help you remember the hairy one is what you want. And then on the hemlock, if you cut the root open, it has hollow spaces in it. It's almost like you cut a strip of bamboo open. It has a nose. So that makes it really easy. That being said, it's dangerous just to touch hemlock. So you try not to do that. And there's a bunch of it. If you go up 45 between here and Dallas, there's 2 different rest areas. Those rest areas are loaded with the hemlock. Don't use this for evil. So, any questions on our wild carrot? I'm not sure if that carrot is found anywhere else in North America. So I think it might just be Texas. So, yeah. No carrot questions?
So
That takes the cake.
roadsides or like roadsides are where you typically find them, or like beside a woodland area?
Yeah, so they like what's called disturbed areas, like fields that have been plowed and then left abandoned or tore up. They spread. They produce lots and lots and lots of seeds, and they spread very, very vigorously. So it's basically the areas that they're at. The only reason they're not spreading more like into the field is because there may be cattle there eating it or plowing up. So it's just the roadsides. It is legal to harvest plants from the roadside. What I recommend though is taking the seeds and planting them someplace where you're not going to get hit by a car.
What does the carrot taste like?
A carrot. Yeah, a carrot if it was small and woody. The carrot itself, the wild carrots, what I recommend with those is chop them up into chunks and put them in something that's going to be like a stew or a soup where it's going to be simmered, or a broth where it's going to be simmered for a while, and then fish them out before you serve it because they are woody. They weren't bred to be the wonderful carrots we have nowadays.
There's a question here. Oh, sorry, the chat moved. And are we looking at the bottom of each on this slide?
Yes. So on the left-hand side, that is a carrot cut in half, a carrot root. And on the right-hand side is the hemlock taproot cut in half. To make it all fit in the picture, I can have to rotate it.
I think they meant the underside of the flower umbrella though. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yes, so it's the edible wild carrot is on the left, the underside of the flower, showing the Kermit the Frog collar versus how the hemlock is just flowers. Anything else? I'll give you a hint. You just saw this earlier this evening. Yeah, here's probably what you're more familiar with. Random big thorns
leaves with thorns. Kind of a overprotective sort of tree. So yeah, thorny trunk, thorny branches, thorny leaves, compound leaves. I can say compound leaves to you and I don't have to describe them. That's so wonderful. I gotta say, I love the Native Plant Society and Herb Society of America because they know plants. And it's so easy. I can use terms and stuff. I will say, based on the spread though, your food is better than the Herb Society, which is kind of surprising. So kudos. They focus a lot on herbs. Okay, the tree itself is kind of goblet shaped. If you're ever wondering what it looks like, just drive 290 between Houston and Austin. And pretty much all the fence lines where you see these trees just standing alone, it's gonna be the two-leaf tree. All right, starting with the leaves. How many of you tried the leaves? What'd you think? Kind of like licking a battery, isn't it? So it has an interesting citrusy sort of smell and flavor, and so that's used in some cuisines. These trees are found all over the world. And so they have the numbing effect, the leaves do, which alters the flavors of other foods. The most common thing is to mix them with hot peppers, and I'll get into that with the husks, but one of the things I like using the leaves with is crushing them up and adding them to ramen noodles or any sort of like quasi-Asian-y sort of brothy food that I'm making. Because it just, I like that scent and that flavor. It goes well with that and like the woodsier mushrooms and so forth. So the berries. Oh, was there a question?
The species that's found all over the world, are they the same species or subspecies?
No, so Texas has 4 species of it, and then around the world there's others, but they all have that numbing effect. And so the berries, if you've ever had Szechuan sauce, that's the key ingredient in Szechuan sauce. This is the husks of these berries or the young berries. So they also have that numbing effect, but they also give that change the flavor of the hot pepper into Szechuanness. Something I like doing. So these, I really find like late June is the right time to harvest the berries to do this. So I will go and buy some random Texas hot sauces and throw in some berries and let them kind of ferment for a while and make an East meets West fusion hot sauce, Szechuan sort of thing going on, which is a lot of fun. Most of the time it works out great. Every so often I'll have one that, not so good, but generally it's like, ooh, that was cool, or hot, wow, that was different. So any questions on it? Microphone, please.
I just want to share that I was addicted to eating the green berries during the spring. They're so yummy.
Yeah, they have an interesting citrusy sort of flavor. Yeah, they're kind of clean your sinuses out too.
Is there an evolutionary reason for the spikes all over or the thorns all over the tree, or is it just?
I'm sure there is, but we don't know what it is.
I get it.
Ooh.
It's ecological niche for having those spikes is straight up just protection. From other species of plants, from getting foraged by deer or other mammals. Yeah, and then it also provides a lot of cover for birds and small mammals that don't forage.
But the numbing effect.
The numbing, no idea. Could not answer that about.
Museum of Natural Science, they said that they would use the leaves for babies when they were teething, because it would numb them for the teething. And then they'd use the thorns if they had an infection. And they'd just beat the infection would get numb. So another use.
Yeah, I have found on, as far as skin goes, the numbing effect isn't really pronounced. Basically, you need tissue that has
It's kind of thin and tender with a lot of blood vessels. So usually your gums and one or two other places on the body.
I know that the bark, like the flesh under the bark, has a similar numbing kind of feel. Is there any uses for that?
So you could use the bark, but it's tough and it wounds the tree more than taking a leaf or a berry. I will say if you tincture the bark, it does induce sweating. So it's used medicinally to induce sweating, but here you step outside. You're sweating, so it's.
There's a request, please ask him to differentiate between Z. clava Hercules and Z. hirsutum. That's those two varieties.
Yeah, okay, so the main difference is where they like to grow. Oh, okay, so the question is, distinguish between the Hercules club, the clava, blah, 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 and the hirsuta, which are the two common trees here. I find the Hercules club to be more common as an understory woodland plant, and then the hirsuta more in the open field. So like when you're driving, I mentioned down to Austin along 290, the one along the fence lines there is going to be the hirsuta. They're used the same way. As far as structural features, it's going to be minute. Any other?
Is this the Szechuan pepper that was on the Chinese one?
Yep, so it's not the exact species, but it's a genus. And I find it to be just as good. Some purists will say, no, it can't be. If you want to spend the money for the real stuff, go for it, or you just take a drive. Yeah. Any other? Okay. Wintertime weed, usually in moist flower beds. Bittergrass. So this is one of the many wild mustards out there. So it's going to have a rosette base, compound leaves, tubular seed pods about 1 inch in length that will be in a spiral up a stem. I heard it once described as, well, mustard seeds in general is a fairy staircase. And I'm just going to, that works for me. I can handle that. And of course, the mustard flowers, 4 petals, 6 stamen. These are going to be very tiny little white flowers. But if you like horseradish, here's your beast. So the leaves, the stem, basically anything tender, even the root. I'll just throw it raw on sandwiches, make fire cider out of it. What I really like doing is mixing it up with mayo or making my own homemade mayo and throwing it in there to make my own homemade Arby's 4C sauce. I love my horseradish sauce. If you don't dip your tater tots in horseradish sauce, you're not living right. Roast beef, makes it anywhere you would use horseradish. Here in Houston, it's basically around in the winter months. Once it gets warmer and drier, it isn't favored growth, so it just kind of goes dormant. If you grow it in a pot in your windowsill in your kitchen, just don't put it in the south side, put it like on the north side or someplace kind of shady. It will grow really well in a pot all year round, and you will start noticing that the pots around it are starting to have it grow too. Because those seed pods, they will fling the seeds, probably about 9 inches, 8, 9 inches, which is a problem in the International Space Station, but we won't go into that. So, okay. One of the problems when you're in space is there's no gravity or microgravity, so your sinuses don't drain. It's like your head gets stuffy. And the scientists they complain, or sorry, the astronauts complain that it's like having a head cold all the time. And one of the things is they can't taste as well. So they are looking for really strongly flavored foods to kind of get through that problem. And so I was doing some work with NASA mow the moon onion, things like that growing. One of the things that the SNRS liked was the bittercress, and it's very common for a lot of the space research plants to use the mustards, because mustards are pretty durable. But they're all using domesticated mustards that pretty much lost the ability to fling their seeds. And it just didn't occur to anyone. That seeds floating around in a weightless environment may not be the best thing for equipment and so forth. Oh, well, so, not my fault. No one asked, how do these reproduce? It's a mustard, like a mustard. They fling their seeds, because I'm used to that. Anyway. Okay, let's try this one. Question.
What mechanism does it use to fling the seeds?
Oh, there's a scientific name for it, but basically the seed pod, as it dries, it goes under tension. And then when something touches it, it just pops. Wood sorrel does that, bull nettle does that.
Partridge seed does that.
Uh,
They go further than 9 inches, I tell you, they make noise.
It's kind of cool. Any other questions? All right. It's not hard to see. Lots of little, let me try this, shepherd's purse. So alternating leaves, this is another one of the wild mustards. This one is really, really tasty in my opinion. Key identifying structure is the seed pods at the spiral at the top are nice heart shaped. They call it shepherd's purse, going back to yield biblical times when the shepherds carried their shekels in the little leather bag. And it had the drawstring on top and it formed kind of a heart shaped. So they said, yeah, shepherd's purse. That sounds cooler than the spicy love plant. I know, they didn't ask me. Oh, well. But again, white 4-petaled flowers, taproot. Same sort of uses as the bittercress. I find the flavor to be a little more mellow and it goes well with a lot of vegetables. Especially if you're gonna like steam, broccoli or something and throw it in there. Fixins, and what I mean by fixins, baked potato with this on top, it's really good. Like a full baked potato, if they ask you at the restaurant, do you want everything? It's like, yeah, you got any shepherd's purse? Everything, the whole plant, anything tender, the seeds, the stem, the leaves, the taproot. The taproot's a little tough. You can grind that up. If you make your fire cider, the herbal remedy, you can use this plant in that. Anywhere where you just want kind of a horseradishy, mustardy sort of thing, like relish, put in some relish, brats, some hot dogs. Yeah, good stuff. Any questions about the shepherd's purse? Wonderful flavor.
Are you using 2 tablespoons or 1/8 of a teaspoon?
It depends on you. I'm a 2 tablespoon sort of guy. I like to breathe fire on my victims. So, but yeah, it's however much you want, adjust to taste. It's like asking someone, what's the proper amount of garlic? No, more. Simple. Any other questions? This is a toughie. Goldenrod. Yep. So 3 to 4 feet tall, hairless stem, usually brown at the base, turning green as it goes up. Alternating leaves. We're very close to the flowers appearing right now. One of the cool things, these plants are actually connected by runners. So I should have mentioned the horseweed has a fibrous root system where each plant has its own roots. The goldenrod, they're like a communal type thing going, they're all connected by the roots. And just to go sideways, it's not a spice, but those roots, especially when they're young and tender, are excellent replacement for udon noodles. Just boil them up with your noodles and yeah, it's cool flavor. The leaves of the goldenrod, this is where it gets complicated. It's kind of an allspice, Asian-y, ginger, black licorice sort of thing. So when, okay, it sounds like I'm going sideways here, but I'm gonna ask you to imagine a flavor. Potato chip. You all know what a potato chip tastes like. Does anyone here not know what a potato chip? Okay. So the actual flavor of potato chips is due to 4 different molecules. If you put those 4 molecules on a piece of paper and hand it to a blindfolded person and say, eat this, well, first you find out if they trust you or not. Second, they'll say, that's the weirdest potato chip I've ever had. But the thing is, everyone is just tasting one of those 4 molecules as the primary flavor, and then a second one of those molecules is kind of the secondary, and then not much of the third or fourth. But which is the primary, which is the secondary is different for everyone. Let's see, 4 times to be 4 factorial, like 16 different combinations of possible potato chip flavors. And so what you think is a potato chip, what you could do a Vulcan mind meld on you, would be different than what you would think is a potato chip. Horrified at what her thought potato chip is. So when it comes to describing the flavor of plants, especially as something as rich and complex as goldenrod, it becomes very, very difficult to give the flavor. So to me, it reminds me of allspice, the Asian sort of thing, just a very mixture of multiple cinnamony and spicy and stuff like that. I recommend you grab a leaf and nibble on it and see what you like, if you like it, and then what in your mind, which food it would go best with. So I normally use it in stir fries or other quasi-Asian, throw in with the ramen noodles, with the toothache tree, prickly ash leaves, things like that. Curries. Experiment, play around, throw it in your eggs, throw it in your chicken noodle soup. Give it a try. Some people say it's like black licorice. I love black licorice. I wish it was more like black licorice, but that's the one thing. If you don't like black licorice, maybe start with just a little bit to see if it's kind of black licorice. And I hopefully haven't poisoned your mind expecting black licorice. Go back to the cinnamon or ginger or allspice sort of. But it's just one of the most fun to experiment with. And all sorts of different recipes. It's like at the eye doctor, is this better or is this better? Is it better with or without the golden? Questions?
Does the species of goldenrod of Solidago change the taste, or is it kind of ubiquitous throughout?
Yeah, so there are 29 different species of goldenrod in Texas alone, and they do have slightly different flavors, but that just adds to the fun. I mean, if you're eating boring food, I'm not gonna be your friend. Well, maybe, you might have other redeeming qualities, okay. But if you're a foodie, you like to experiment. Cocktail syrup from this is really good, tea from this is really good. All sorts of good uses for the goldenrod.
How much of your diet consists of foraged items?
Okay, so I try and get about 10% of my diet from the wild. It really depends on how busy I am. One of the things I've done, I've been in the same house now since '99. Suburbia up in Spring, Texas, 30-foot by 70-foot backyard, which I've converted into a permaculture food forest. And so the last time I counted, which was 2014, there were 81 different food plants back there growing. And it changed throughout the year and so forth. But I just wandered through the yard and harvest and get what I can.
And one more, does your book differentiate between native and non-native species?
No, the book does not differentiate. That was not something the publisher was interested in. Can you eat it or not?
Yeah.
And one thing I like to point out, an excellent way of taking care of the invaders is to eat them. So you might have noticed the lionfish. There's all sorts of recipes out there for the lionfish, and more recently, the Tengu lizard that has actually been spotted now in the wild in Texas too. So it's an iguana relative, not native. One kind of tasty.
Are It's like chicken. Are the leaves edible on all goldenrods?
Yes, all the goldenrod are, all the Solendago leaves are edible, the flowers are edible too.
Which is your personal favorite of the Soledad?
I don't waste my time trying to figure
That's
it
a
out.
really good question.
I got more important things to do than to minutely inspect my plant.
Just trying to.
If I do that, I'll find bugs in the ones in my yard.
You mentioned that the flowers are also edible. Could they be used in the same sort of culinary use, or do they have a different sort of flavor?
Yeah, so I find the flowers to be somewhat weaker. I use the flower, so first, one thing to remember is goldenrod flowers traditionally are the last flower of the season for the bees.
Yeah.
So generally, you don't want to take many of them. I will say, if you go back earlier in the year, when the goldenrod is first growing, once it gets about knee high, take off the top 4 inches and hang that to dry. Now, instead of just growing one stalk, it will hydra and form 3 to 5 new stalks and grow those. And then like a month later, 2 months later, take one of those stalks, take the leaves from that, and let the other 4 go to flower, and just take one of those, the flowers, for use medicinal or cocktails or whatever, make your food beautiful. And then you still have 3 stalks for the bees. So, but yeah, the flavor of the flowers, it's different. I would describe the flavor of the flowers as not as durable in cooking. It's better in like coleslaw or relish or just sprinkled on salads, things like that. Any other questions? All right. Sumac, yeah, hey. Okay, let me say, if you're thinking poison sumac, must not slap you. So there's a number of rust species around here. I'll just lay it right out here. You're not gonna find poison sumac around here. And if you do, one of the main differences is this is a nice open field sort of plant, full sun, dry, very bushy, small tree, very branchy. Poison sumac is what we call a wet foot plant. It grows right in the water's edge. It's just a stalk that comes up, and then at the very top, the branches come out almost like a palm tree. And then it has clusters of white berries. Sumac, 5 foot, 9 foot type shrubs, maybe even a little taller. There's some on the property here. Compound leaves, cone-shaped clusters of berries. And that's what you're after, these clusters of berries. The berries themselves are fuzzy. And just one other thing on the poison sumac, the berries are smooth. Like if you've ever like played around with poison ivy berries, it's the same sort of smooth. There's a lot of poison ivy here too. If you don't know what a poison ivy is. Okay. So the flavor of these berries, and especially that, if you can see, there's this like white crust on the berries. That's a tartaric acid and some other organic acids. It's basically the same components of a sweet tart minus the sweet. So it has a tart, rich flavor, very common in Mediterranean cooking. So your gyros and things like that often have a dusting of the sumac. You might be thinking it's paprika, maybe paprika if they're trying to rip you off. But the good ones are going to have the actual sumac powder on it. So you would use a lamb, chicken, beef, any of the savory meats to really give it kind of a Mediterranean, Middle Eastern sort of flavor to it. Very, 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 very tasty. Also rice. I like just adding it to rice to give just kind of that, again, Mediterranean flavor to it. The young shoots themselves, if you break one off, you will smell it. It has a very interesting aromatic sort of scent too. To me, it's almost kind of like root beer-ish, kind of like a root beer cinnamony sort of smell. And you can use that to make a tea. But I generally don't recommend randomly cutting branches off trees if you don't have to, especially when you can get such good flavor from this, and there's so much horseweed around that you can use that. So any questions on the sumac? Again, there's like 3 or 4 different species around here. The fragrant sumac, as you go farther west, instead of big cones, this is like a triple deck ice cream cone. You know, it's a big cone. The fragrant sumac will be smaller clusters, but it'll have this really interesting sumac-y smell. Which learn the sumac smell. Questions?
I'm sorry, I apologize if you already went over this, but so you're going for the berries?
The berries.
And at what point?
Okay, so the berries, when they're red, lick your finger, rub it on the berries, lick your finger again. If you get a tart taste, it's good to go. If you see that white crusty stuff, they'll still do the taste test, make sure it's actually the, you know, not spider webs or something like that. The one issue though is heavy rains will wash a lot of flavor off. And it takes a long time for the plant to produce more. Like this time of the year, it's not gonna replace it. So basically, as soon as you see the berries are red, start licking them. You find people will not ask you questions either when you're doing this. They don't ask me questions. I'm moving. Any other questions on the sumac? Yes. And I will say sumac aid is a delicious thing.
So once you get the berries, do you like dry them and crush them?
That's
Dry them and put them in whole in your dish?
So the best thing is to dry them and then put them in a pepper mill. And just grind it as necessary, or if you want to grind it all. It's like any sort of plant, once you grind it, the clock has started ticking. On how long it's gonna retain its flavor.
Awesome, thanks.
Yep. Any others? Okay, so that was a brief introduction. There's lots of other plants out there. The Texas purple sage you can use as a sage